So we're in Acts chapter 6, and we're looking at the first 7 verses. So we see here it says, the 12 summoned the multitude and said, "It is not desirable that you should leave the word of Yahuah and serve tables." So this is the first mention of what you just said. You talked about deacons, and this is the first time it's mentioned. And, you know, the whole idea of what they're looking at is that they're saying, you know, we have, I'm hearing a lot of feedback. So we have these things that we've been called to do. We're called to teach the word, but yet there's all these other issues. And he says we can't serve the tables too, which was just a way of saying we can't do business of the fellowship. We can't take on the issues of the fellowship and teach the word, because that's where business took place, over tables. You know, they sat at the table, tax collectors, trading, business took place over the tables. They had discussions. They worked out all their problems. So that's what this verse is talking about. You know, and like we talked about earlier, this is a reality of growth. You know, when you have a certain number of leaders, the reality of growth is that there are going to be issues that arise. So at any point, you know, you're going to need help. Specifically, the elders, they needed help dealing with all these issues. I'm unmuting you guys.
Okay.
You see anything there?
No, I agree. I mean, that's pretty much it. It's just, you know, as you're saying, you know that type of stuff happens as you grow and you encounter different people, different types of people, and you know, different sections of life. There's going to be some tension there, obviously, you know, but you know, there's also there's a way that the assembly should be ran. You know, who has definitely given us the beginnings of how he wants things to be set up, you know, as they're needed, you know, to meet those type of needs. You know, instead of doing it our particular way or making up different offices and titles and names, you know, there's a scriptural way to do it all. You know, and here's the beginning of that.
Some results.
Right. I think it's also important too to point out here that, you know, there is no distinction. They're not trying to weigh what they had to do more than the needs of the people. Both were needed. They just needed to have proper order when they picked the men that were to do these things. So sometimes people kind of try to say, okay, well, one is more important than the other. No, they're both important. Everyone has a gift to offer, and they're all of equal value. So I think that should be pointed out as well.
Right. Yeah.
But I think too, this speaks of, you know, the leaders, you know, being pulled in too many different directions, and how if you don't have proper help, if you don't have relief, if you don't have somebody that can stand in the gap and help you, because remember Moses was going through this when he went to Jethro, and he said, you got to use some delegation. You got to get some people to do the things that they need to do to help you out. You're going to burn out, you know. Also, you can see how someone can get discouraged this way too. You know, if you have a group of people always doing the same thing with no one to help, and they got all these issues, people are coming in, the church is growing, assembly's growing, and no one's there to help those people, everybody is going to be stretched out, tired, overwhelmed, so this also speaks to the idea that the Ruach is leading them to bring men in to help them. But I thought it was real interesting how it's broken down, the qualification of these men. Verse 3. Therefore, brethren, seek out from among you 7 men of good reputation. 7 men in the Jewish communities, in the Hebrew communities, were known as 7 of the town. They would be chosen, and they would be known among the people. They were people of good reputation that would help out with all of the things that were going on in the community. So he says these things here. He says they have to be from among you. You know what I mean? When you pick leaders, when you identify leaders, they should be from among your congregation. Someone outside is not going to know the needs of the people that you fellowship with. And how, because you look at some churches, how they bring hirelings in, to do different things, and how those hirelings are never in touch with the people to be able to do the work of the ministry as they should be.
Yeah, I think quite a few deacons don't have any of these qualifications either. They just kind of slide by, and it's like what do you call it? A dynasty type of thing,
Right.
My dad was a deacon, I'm a deacon, then you're gonna be on the junior deacon board, but that's not what it is. It's you have to be full of the Spirit and a good report, not somebody been sleeping around all these years and now you decide to get serious. Oh yeah, let's put them on the deacon board now.
Right. I mean, and there are some fellowships that just pick popular people instead of men of good character. I mean, the qualifications are very clear here. It says, 1, pick someone from among you. 2, someone of good report, someone who has a good reputation, like you just said, someone whose name speaks before them. So when you hear that person's name, their character. It goes before them, right? Not just, these aren't just some dudes. These are men of good quality. These are men of good character. And he says 3 says full of the Ruach.
Yeah.
Right? And not just filled, not just kind of spiritual, not just, these are men whose lives are directed by the Ruach. You know what I mean? Their lives are controlled by the Ruach. Every decision they make is by the Ruach, and you can clearly see it. They're not shooting from the hip. They're not giving you a quick answer. They're saying, you know what? Let me go pray about that. Let me seek Yah's counsel. I'll get back to you. Nothing is hasty. These men are quality men. These men are going to be called to do the business of the people.
And they're men.
Brother Brian. Look at I'm gonna turn to 1 Timothy chapter 3, where he breaks down qualifications.
Of a bishop, yes.
Give me a second. Says, likewise, the deacons be grave, not double-tongued. Not speaking out both sides of their mouth. Being clear of speech, being solid on what they believe, solid on what they say. A man of their word, right? not giving too much wine, not a drunkard, not greedy to filthy lucre, not greedy for money, holding the mystery of the faith in a pure conscience. They know how to speak the word of faith. They know how to explain the word of faith. And let these also first be proven, then let them use the office of deacon, being found blameless. You want these men to be blameless. They're going to be serving the people, right? Verse 11 says, even so must their wives be grave, not slanderers, sober, faithful in all things. Let the deacons be the husbands of one wife, ruling their children and their own houses well. One of the things that I made a point to say when I was brought in as an elder was that my wife and my son could speak the same thing that the fellowship was speaking. Because if they couldn't, then I shouldn't be there. So these qualifications are real,
Yeah.
But they have used the office of a deacon well, purchase of themselves a good degree, and great boldness and faith, which is in Messiah Yahushua. So, by them having these qualities, by them coming together, by them studying the word together, by them serving, they will be bold in what they are called to do. So very important here, man.
Yes. And I'm looking up, the definition of full, it's, it gives us a more complete picture of like lacking nothing, that's, perfect, upright, mature, not, obviously not blameless, well, not sinless, but perfect, mature, upright, replete, covered over of the Spirit, it just gives a deeper picture of that, that full of the Spirit. Sometimes we get a different picture of people, because they can quote certain scriptures or, they have certain reactions to something instead of actual fullness, completeness, maturity, the way they act, the way they, like you said, how do you act when you're at home, when you're private, because then if you're full, if you're complete, if you're really full of the Ruach, because, it covers you in every aspect and not just, in front of the assembly or in public.
For sure. I mean, you made me think of something, when it comes to, the whole idea of being of good report, being able to, understand what that person's life is like outside the fellowship, their family, their neighbors, even where they're employed, what do people say about them? So all of these things are qualities that were very clear and necessary, because these 7 men were going to be vital to the movement of the body, of the tabernacle of Yahuah. So this was no slighted list. These were men that could stand the test. So and verse 4 speaks of prayer always. He says, but we will give ourselves continually to prayer and to the ministry of the word. Acts 2:42 says, and they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, and in breaking bread and in prayers. Prayer was always primary to whatever they were doing. These weren't guys that, like we said earlier, shooting from the hip. They went to the throne. Men prayed, things changed, buildings shook, chains broke. You can't have that type of ministry. The Ruach can't move through you if you're not speaking and in constant connection and communication with the Father. You know what I mean? So prayer, very important. One of the most important aspects to the ministry that these men were doing, as it should be with us. We can't do anything without prayer. Prayer is on life's battlefield, prayer is our walkie-talkie to get the instructions from the Father. Period. You know, and how we miss it, how we need prayer. You know, we're too busy not to pray. Life swoops on you and will wrap around you like the talons of an eagle if you're not in prayer. You know.
Yes, definitely important. I mean, like you said, the most important thing you get, you know, even the instructions that we have written without prayer, you can't really truthfully understand it. You know, prayer is the basis for all that. Like you said, communication, you know, repentance, it's for instruction, for supplication, all of it. And it's all wrapped around prayer. Everything. I agree. All of our walk, it has to include prayer, because if it doesn't, you know, we're all going to be off the mark for sure. For sure.
Yeah, verse 5. You know, and 6 goes into, you know, who was chosen, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says, and the saying pleased the whole multitude. And they chose Stephen, a man full of faith, and the Ruach Hakodesh, Philip, Procurius, Nicanor, Timon, Parmenas, Nicholas, proselyte from Antioch. And listen, you know what was interesting about this verse, particularly to me, was that the Hellenistic Greeks had an issue that their women weren't being treated the same way as the Hebrew women, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what did the leaders do? They didn't just grab leaders. They grabbed Greek leaders. All these names here are Greek names. They grabbed someone sympathetic to the needs of the people that had the issues. You know, what kind of that's love there. You know what I mean? That's saying, you know, because at this time all the leaders were Hebrews, but they called in leaders to serve with them that were Greeks that had a sympathetic ear to their people. And I thought that was unbelievable. I hadn't looked at it like that before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying when I first came on. You know, definitely that the Greek, and I wonder. I'm gonna need to look into that about, you know, their meetings, because you know, I know they're Greek names and not Hebraic names, but I've never really paid attention to that other than Stephen. You know, I just always glossed over that. So that's definitely a point that, you know, that it should be representative. The assembly should be representative of who's in it.
Right.
I've always found it odd when, you know, people come to the city and then all the leaders are a certain thing, but, you know, nobody represents the community and the needs of the people. You know, there was a pastor, I think it was in North Carolina, South Carolina. You know, his wife said some things a couple years ago, around the election time, that were insensitive. You know, it's like she couldn't have had any people around her in her circle that represented the people that were a member of her church.
Right.
Because, you know, she said some things, you know, and so I think, like you said, that's important. That you know, we do have a representative of everybody around, that you can reach all different type of people, and not just, you know, one person or one type of person that you know that we feel should be in these type of positions.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. I mean, you know, when we look at the way things are done, you know, one of the things that I really love about Acts is that it gives us a clear picture of what to do. You know, in our assemblies, like everything is addressed. You know, every issue is addressed. You know, everything that we're going to go through, you know, even in the realm of not necessarily specific, but in the realm of understanding that these issues also occurred then, there's a way to deal with them. And the picture we have is the book of Acts. You know, so when it comes to choosing men to lead, when it comes to understanding the problems that will occur in an assembly, when it deals with when we want to find out how we deal with church, with discipline, assembly discipline, you know, when we deal with personal problems, you know, all of these things are outlined for us clearly here. And what an awesome book to read through as we look at these men, you know, and you know how often we hold these guys on a pedestal, but knowing that they are just like us, but allowing the Ruach to use them exactly the way he was supposed to. So I'm baffled by the illumination of that when I read it. You know, when I see these men and I see, you know, because Yah he doesn't hide their faults, right? He doesn't hide the mistakes that they make. Matter of fact, we learn sometimes better from the mistakes that are recorded than from other things, because we learn what not to do, you know, and how we do things in our own mind and then come back and read and say, man, if I just would have read this, I never would have got myself in that situation, you know? All right, so we're in verse 8. Somebody want to read the next several verses from verse 8 to 15? Okay.
And Stephen, full of belief and power, did great wonders and miracles among the people. Then there are certain of the synagogue, which is called the synagogue of the Libertines and Cyrenes and Alexandrians, and of them of Cilicia and of Asia, disputing with Stephen. And they were not able to resist the wisdom and the ruach by which he spoke. And they suborned men which have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moshe and against Elohim. And they stirred up the people and the elders and the scribes and came upon him and caught him and brought him to the council and set up false witnesses, which said, the man ceases not to speak blasphemous words against this holy place and the Torah, for which have heard him say that this Yahusha, the Netzrati, shall destroy this place and shall change the customs of Moshe delivered us. And all that sat in the council looking steadfast on him saw his face as it had been the face of an angel.
Good. What do you see there?
Well, you know, I see what happens here as overall, you know, that, you know, as he's preaching the word of Elohim, the truth, you know, that there are going to be those who are bound by tradition, you know, who said, you know, this is the way we always done it. This is the way we do it. Yeah, this is the way our family, you know, we've been Baptist, we've been AME, we've been Catholic for everybody. My mom was a Baptist, I'm a diet Baptist, you know, type of thing. But, you know, we have always, Yahusha has a remnant of people who are preaching the truth, you know, who look like they suffer. You know, they've been suffering from the beginning. We see here that since the beginning, there are people who are standing up for truth and righteousness, you know, go against traditions of men. And, you know, and they even try to say, you know, we believe in the Bible, we believe in Torah, you know, we are, you know, he's going against what we thought. We read the Bible on Sunday morning. You know, what's wrong? Why are you trying to mess up our traditions? But, you know, so I just see that something that always has been a kind of a mixing, a strange fire people mixing, Torah with their own traditions and beliefs. And then when you come against that stuff, with the pure word, they get upset and make up false witness against you. You're just in a cult. You're just in a cult. You're crazy. But as Stephen did, we have to stand tall, and continue to preach the word of truth.
Right. It's funny. I'll go after Mike. Mike's got his hand raised. Go ahead, Mike. Here you go.
I'm not breaking up.
Yeah, I could barely hear you.
All right, just come back to me because I'm going over a bridge.
Okay. Yeah. What you were saying, Nathaniel, made me just think like, it's one thing that when we bring the word of truth, to people, when the word of truth is spoken, and how it draws attention, period, right? But for those that aren't teaching truth, they're immediately going to be offended, and they're immediately going to want to attack anyone that's opposing what they're saying. And the same goes for truth, period. When you are a truth teller, all kinds of things arise against you because you stand alone, you stand differently than everybody else, and one of the things about this martyrdom that we're going to see as we read forward is that there was nothing that was shaken about this man, and how his testimony changed the world, because we know that Shaul probably witnessed this and his life was changed forever, right? All because he was willing to stand on truth against everyone that was opposing him. Mike?
Every better now?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to point out too, a lot of people use this to say that Paul taught against the law, but this is the first part, which is it says people falsely accuse him of talking against Torah and the law and those things. So that's just something to mind, because again, it seems to just think it's talking against it. That's what we're told.
Yeah, man, you're coming in real broken up, brother.
Okay.
And I hear bits and pieces, and it sounds good, so I really want to be able to hear you.
I'll come back when I pass the bridge.
All right. Brian, JP, you got anything?
Yeah, I'm just listening so far. What chapter are we in?
Oh, we're in Acts chapter 6. We just read verses 8 through 15 when Stephen is accused of blaspheming the word.
Oh, okay, yeah. The only thought I had was I think it was in chapter 4. They were talking about they had prayed at the end of the chapter, and they prayed for I think they was praying for boldness. And I think that's what you're seeing here on display. There's it says at the end of chapter 4 that they were filled with the Ruach. I have to turn to it to see get like some more context for where is it? Oh, sorry.
Take your time, brother.
Yeah. There we go. Okay.
And while he looks for that, we just talked about that when we were just explaining the qualifications of the 7 men. That one of the qualifications was they had to be filled with the Ruach, and how, as Brian's saying, you're witnessing him being filled right here, to carry out that boldness that we were talking about. Go ahead, brother. You found it?
Yeah, it says in Acts 4:24, and when they what I thought I found it, but it's maybe
But I was looking at verse 8. It says, and Stephen, full of faith and power, did great wonders and signs among the people. So this is the first time anyone outside of the disciples, and Yahushua himself had done anything with great wonders, it's signs, miracles. And how, again, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, speaking of the growth. When you experience growth, you have to identify other men, other women, and then allow those gifts to be exhibited through, while the Ruach works through those people. Because as we're choosing those people, we're choosing them that have a good report, those that are filled with the Ruach, those that aren't hungry and chase after filthy lucre. These are the people of good character that are going to do the work of the ministry. And here we clearly see how this is exactly what's happening. Stephen has presented himself a vessel. He has emptied himself only to be used by the Father. So this is an exciting picture here.
Oh, okay. Here it is. Yeah, they said in 4:29. This is right after. The apostles. They were threatened by the Pharisees not to preach the word of not to preach Yahushua HaMashiach among the crowd, and they prayed to Yahuah. They said, well, it says, and now, Lord, behold their threatenings, and grant unto thy servants that with all boldness they may speak thy word by stretching forth thine hand to heal, and that signs and wonders may be done by the name of thy holy child, Yahusha. And when they had prayed, the place was shaken where they were assembled together, and they were all filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and they spoke the word of Yah with boldness. So, it reminded me of that in that situation. Stephen, being filled of the Ruach, was able to speak in that authority and that boldness, and able to stand in that moment of persecution, and how important the Ruach is. If you feel that spirit, Yahushua, he talks about, I think, in Matthew 24, he said, don't think about what you're going to speak when they place you in those situations, because the Ruach is going to speak, give you the words to speak in those situations. And like he did, like Ruach has done for Stephen, he'll do for us in that day, if we live to see those. Well, if we're ever in that situation of, which I believe our generation is, just judging on what the world's doing with passing certain laws and things. it's a good example for us today how important it is to be filled with the Ruach, be filled with His truth. The spirit of truth, which is His word, worship worship in spirit and in truth, and knowing the word, knowing the Torah, knowing the commandments, knowing Yah's love. You're seeing that on display right here before our eyes with Stephen here. So it's a beautiful and tragic at the same time that the people there are so their hearts are so hardened that they have no relationship with Yahuwah whatsoever, and they cannot relate to what Stephen is saying because they are not of the truth and not of the spirit of Yah. And you're seeing that stark difference here between the children of the light and the children of darkness. And so yeah, that's all I wanted to bring out there.
Yeah, nah, Brian, that's good. I mean, just the whole idea of the passage that you brought out, that you read, because I remember when we went through chapter 4 and we looked at it and we were like, man, these men their lives were being threatened, right? They were being threatened to be thrown in jail, but they didn't pray, Father, change their minds. He didn't pray, keep them away from us. He said, in spite of what they're doing, what they're saying against us, give us the boldness to speak anyway, And even here, when Stephen is speaking, even though we know what he's saying is going to be rejected, he still has that same boldness that someone might hear, So very good passage that we brought out there. Verse 9 too. Check it out. It says, then there arose some from what is called the synagogue of freed men. That's what that meant. That meant freed men. Cyrenians, North Africa, Alexandrians, and those of Cilicia and Asia, disputing with Stephen. And they were not able to resist the wisdom of the Ruach by which he spoke. So here we have the same thing. Remember back in that same passage that you just read, Brian, even though they knew that it was the truth that they were speaking, it says in verse 10, they were not able to erase it. Verse 11, then they secretly induced men to say, they hired men to say that they were teaching lies, that he was blaspheming, and how the lengths that they will go through to show the men of truth and call them a liar,
Yeah.
You guys think about that.
And these are people from all over the world, and like they before, they might have been like the widows weren't treated right, so they may have differences about a whole lot of stuff. But when it comes to hearing the truth, I think we have that today. Sometimes Christian churches and denominations, they don't agree on a lot. Right. But when it comes to this truth, when it comes to the truth of Torah, that's when they can band together, conspire and lie and hide things, like people are finding out now it has been done.
Right.
So I don't think it stopped right there. I think the lies and the conspiring continued because, despite their differences in different languages, different cultures, the unites them is the hate of the truth and coming against the truth of Yah and the preaching of the truth, Bashur, that he's given us, not their traditions and not, oh, well, we do it this way, but, you're not doing that stuff, that's fine. You can make the sign of the cross this way, you can bow like this, or you can, have a sunrise service or baptize adults or children, that don't matter. But as long as you're not teaching that Torah stuff, that's when we can all band together and say, nah, that's a problem.
Yeah, you see that like in Yahushua's talk about Matthew 23, he told the Pharisees, you hypocrites, you hold up the traditions, the man-made doctrines over and make the word of Yah of none effect. And so, you're seeing that here. Of course, Stephen's telling the truth, but their truth is their own man-made traditions and their own powers and their own lawlessness. And Steve is bringing Yahuah's word, his law, and they're rejecting that.
And like it says, they can see it. They know it's the truth. Yeah. The people today, they know, but it's gonna mess with. It's gonna mess with the position.
Right.
So that stipend go, that mission stipend go. I know this is true, but
Yeah, you see, like in Hosea 4:6, he said it's the same thing. It says that my people suffer for lack of knowledge, but it goes on. It says, because you reject knowledge, I will reject you. And he's talking to his where is it at here? Hosea. It says Hosea 4. He says okay, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will reject thee, and thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy Yah, thy Elohim. I will also forget thy children. So it's all throughout Scripture. You see how these people, Yah's people, have rejected his Torah, has rejected his law. And when Yahushua was there, he said, your house is going to be left unto you desolate. He said, I will not return. So he said, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yah. And so you constantly see this rejection. Then Shaul eventually, in Romans 11, he says that the Jews will be blinded in part until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. He's going to use the Gentiles to make Judah jealous. They're going to see the blessings of Yah through the heathens that they look down on, and they're going to become jealous in the whole 9 yards, and then eventually they're going to come back, and it's going to be like life from the dead. The Jews are going to be awakened, and it's going to be like life from the dead in Romans 11. So, you're seeing that constant rejection all throughout. It's only like a remnant of Israel that you're seeing that accepts his Torah, accepts his judgments and things like that. And even today, there's only a remnant. There's only a remnant that's going to accept it, and most people are on that broad path to destruction. There's only a remnant that's going to receive the truth, and so it was back then. So it will be, I believe, today as well. It's only going to be that remnant out of like, well, we got over 7 billion people on the earth, and who out of 7 billion is going to actually receive this? And so it's like history repeats itself, and the same persecution they suffered, the same persecution our brothers and sisters have been suffering overseas and things like that, just hasn't come here as of yet. But
voice of the martyrs.
As time passes, you can already see that it's going to be coming as far as what they're trying to do and things like that. So it's an inspiration to all of us to have that same examine ourselves, walk out our salvation with fear and trembling, and make sure that our faith is established on the foundation, that rock of our salvation, of Yahushua HaMashiach, and we have it full of His Spirit and His authority and His power. And so it's up to all of us to examine our own selves and walk out the salvation, fear and trembling, so we can stand just like Stephen and the rest of us did back then.
Mm-hmm. Right. Very good. And not just discouraged. Not discouraged, because like you said, Israel has been Israel forever. Mm-hmm. So it's the same. They've been stiff-necked a long time. And it's going to continue to be that way. So you can't get discouraged because your brother don't get it, don't see it, because it's been that way forever. It'll always be that way. So we just have to, like Brian said, pray and, try to remain in the remnant that is standing for this truth, because there always have been naysayers. From Moses, those people with Aaron, that side with Aaron, and went that way with that golden calf. So now, there's always people who reject it. They know the truth, but they just reject it. We reject it for some reason. You know?
Yeah, you see it today. You see, look at 1,700 years ago, we had the establishment of the Catholic Church, where they did exactly what Daniel 7 said the Antichrist spirit would do. They would change the times, the feast days, the appointed times. They got rid of the Shabbat, changed it to Sunday, got rid of our holidays, the feast days, changed it to their holidays. And then you had the Protestant church that came out of that, the different denominations, but they pretty much followed the same patterns. And then you got all the other religions and everything else, Judaism, that stays of Kabbalah and Talmud, and it's all rejection of Yah's Torah. So it's scary because it's like most of us used to be in that system, that Antichrist religious system. Mm-hmm. And so it's like it's a blessing, and it's like a relief, because it's like I know myself. I used to be in that number of those stiff-necked, hardened, didn't know Yah, didn't understand didn't follow his commandments, didn't love Yah as a result. And to be brought out of that stiff-neckedness and hardness of heart, it's a miracle. And I just thank Yah, because it's like because it's like he brought me out of that world Antichrist system, basically, of lawlessness, Torahlessness. Mm-hmm. And I could have been like those people in Matthew 7. They said, Lord, Lord, haven't we prophesied in your name? Haven't we done many marvelous works and healed the sick and did all that? And he said, he looked on there and said, depart from me, you works of iniquity, which is lawlessness. I know you not. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the lawlessness of these people that Stephen is talking to, and they don't want to hear it. They are actively rejecting the word of God. And as a result, if they don't repent, just like today, if they don't repent, they're sending themselves to the lake of fire. And so yeah, these people are under strong delusion, like 2 Thessalonians talks about. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, he says they're gonna believe a lie. It's gonna be a great falling away, and it's already happening. It's already happened. People have fallen away from the truth, fallen away from his ruach. I mean, not just fallen away, but rejected his ruach, rejected his truth for their own man-made doctrines, and we're already seeing this. This is not something that's happening in the future. The Antichrist spirit is already working among us, and it just hasn't gotten to the point where people are being like martyred left and right, like it talks about in Revelation. People are gonna get their heads chopped off and stuff. Although it's happening in some places in the world, but yeah, we're already seeing the fruits of the Antichrist spirit working. It's working back then and working now, and it's we're just all blessed and fortunate here to be amongst the remnant that y'all opened our eyes to see, because we're part of that restoration of all things, that spirit of Elijah y'all talked about a while back in Acts chapter 2, the restoration of all things, and yeah, that the Lord, the Prince of this world, is that's what he's warring against. That's the spiritual warfare. That's the spiritual battle that we're in, and yeah, only with the Ruach can we stand with that, put on the whole armor of Yah, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the sword of the Spirit, which is the word. When you don't have the word in you, that's the Ruach there, the word, the spirit of truth, the wisdom. And you won't be able to be like Stephen. You won't be able to stand before these devils. But yeah, with that Ruach, that authority, that's for joy, knowing that if we die, we're going to be with Yahuah forever, in his life, in his joy, in his presence, and that's the other thing that even forward to the joy of the reality of seeing the children of Yah in the kingdom and things, and that's something that gives us inspiration and strength in those hours, knowing that we may die, but knowing that at the end the saints overcame Hasatan by the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony, and it loved not their lives unto death, because death has been conquered by Yahusha. It says, "Death, where's your sting? Grave, where's your victory?" It's done. It's finished, and we can always look forward to that. Even Stephen, as we'll see, he has that peace of the Ruach as well. You see it all over him where I'm not going to go ahead. We're going to see that peace of Yahuah where he's able to he's facing death, and then he's like, forgive them, they know not what they do. And that fruit is all over him until the end, that fruit of the Ruach. So we can.
It's all right, bro. Hey, you're preaching, man. I mean, there's so much in these 2 chapters. I mean, leading up to what Stephen has become. You talked about the prayer in chapter 4 for boldness, and here you have him standing here with boldness, and because of his boldness, they're now contriving against him. They're making things up that aren't true against him. That's unbelievable. It says, then they secretly induced and secretly hired men to say, we heard him speak blasphemous words against Moshe and Yahuah, and then they stirred the people up. Who else did they do that to? Our Messiah, the exact same thing. And when you stand on truth, those are the things that are going to come at you. We talked about standing on the truth of the word. We talked about truth itself. When you are a truth teller, people don't like you for some reason, because your truth exposes their lie. That's what it is. Shalom, brother. We're in Acts chapter 6. We just read, and we're breaking down verses 8 through 15 of Acts chapter 6. Brother Nathaniel, go ahead, brother.
Okay. Just piggybacking off something Brian said, about coming off out of our tradition, thinking about, let me think about a couple chapters ahead, Brother Cornelius, that he was sincere, but wrong. So I think, that my heart was like that, although I was wrong, that, many of us were in the same boat, that sincere but sincerely wrong. So that, there is a chance for those who have an open heart, that he will draw. Unlike here, nobody, his heart was pricked to tell the truth. All those who heard were lying. They had no desire to hear the truth. They were more interested in their various traditions, whether it was, I was talking about before, from Alexander or whatever. Right. They're more about the traditions, that no one is interested in, not one person here, whether the Hebraic Jews or the Greek Jews, none of them have any desire to hear the truth. They would rather go on with their vain traditions, and they to the point of lying and coming up with stuff and having this man, we'll see in the coming chapter, stoned to death. That's a hard heart that people are supposed to be following Torah or to know Yahuah, to bear false. They're bearing false witness. So they're, even the Torah that they're saying they're keeping, they're not, because they're bearing false witness. So they know Torah because it says that. They're mixing it with that, but it's that strange fire that's drawing them so much into it that they're willing to keep that strange fire lit, and bury that part of Torah, that they would bear false witness, because that's the way I'm sure that they had to do it. Because that's why they did it in secret with Stephen and with the Messiah. They went behind the scenes to do that in those transactions, because everyone knew you're not supposed to bear false witness. So that's not something that's not known. So it's just amazing that all they're saying they're keeping the Torah, they're doing stuff that's blatantly against it to try to keep something that's false and to extinguish the truth that Stephen was preaching.
Right. So it's not only were they doing wrong, they were contriving to do it and enticing others to do it.
Yeah.
And when I look at the Pharisees and Sadducees, how they came at Messiah, here we're looking at the Hellenistic Jews, and how they came at all the disciples, Shaul, and here Stephen. It always seems to be about the tension is drawn away from them, because they were used to standing in front of the crowds and praying these grandiose prayers and being lording over the people. And here come these men who they all thought were unlearned, and they're preaching and they're doing miracles, and everything that is happening is a clear sign from the Father, and they know it. They know it, and they suppress it and make them out to be liars so that they can drive against them. So it's unbelievable how far the lengths that the wicked go through. It's said in Psalms 1 talks about the wicked and the evildoers, and the idea is those are the people that when they can't find anything or see anything clearly to do wrong, they make up things to do wrong. And this is exactly what's going on here. So truth speakers, beware. This is what's coming at you, When we stand on truth, when we pray for boldness, this is what we have to be bold for. This is what we have to be bold and speak against. So, but verse 15 kind of blew me away. I want to know what you guys think about that. And all those who sat in the council, looking steadfastly at him, saw his face and his face of an angel, as the face of an angel. What do you guys think about that? Go ahead, Nate.
For me, I see here, I was bringing up, about going back to Romans, where it talks about reprobate mind. Clearly, they're in the quote unquote church, they're in the assembly, they're there. These are people who, they're so deceived, they're in service, but they're so deceived in their minds, their mind, it's because they see he has the face of an angel. So clearly, they recognize his innocence, but their mind's so gone. And so I think, thank Yahuah that, he didn't do that while I was out there, that, I could think that I'm right. There's some people who, their conscience is seared. They can see, like we were saying all along, they can see the truth, but they just don't care. And that to me shows that they don't care. They can see it. He's innocent. They can see he was probably right, but they don't even care. It's that Yahuah is showing them all the signs that it shows that they saw the truth. They couldn't reason with them. He says, "Oh yeah, that's in there. Yeah, he's right." That's again. It's like he's giving them some type of sign to say, "Hey, well, maybe we should turn from what we're doing," and still, they still don't. They don't take it. Their conscience clearly see it here, and they're reprobate because nothing that is coming forth, the truth, through his preaching, the truth through the witness in the scripture, Yahuah is showing them that, hey, he's an angel, he's innocent. Still, they're not accepting anything from Yahuah to say turn. So I think that this is lining up with scripture. It's you're on a dangerous place because you don't even know to me. Still don't know that they're wrong.
Yeah, I agree with Nathaniel. I believe it's a witness from Yahuah against them because it's like not ill, and it's like he sent them. Yahuah constantly sent Israel witnesses, and they rejected all of them, and he even didn't Yahuah and his son Yahusha, and they rejected him as well. And so, and so in our life, I believe that before we die, Yahuah gives, and if we reject the witness of his truth and everything, that's what's going to send us a lake of fire. And this is like Stephen, I believe he's like to these men, he's a witness of the truth. The Ruach is like shining up from him, and a wonder through Stephen that this is the truth you're hearing here, and they are rejecting it. And in the end, it's going to be a witness against them on that day, in the white throne judgment in Revelation. They're going to remember that day that they rejected him, that they stoned him to death. And if they never repented, that would be a witness against them. So to me, I see it as it's like just evidence in the courtroom that witnesses, that you rejected them, you killed them over and over and over again, and now you are going to receive your judgment according to your works, and that's what I'm seeing there.
Yeah, it actually reminded me of Moshe coming down from the mount when he was glowing, because he had to take the word to the people, to Israel. And here, this verse precedes Stephen about to preach, and how the illumination of the Ruach must have been on him so clearly that they saw it right before he spoke. So that's what I kind of thought of. You see anything, Rick? You see anything?
Yeah, I thought about that myself. That light of them.
Yeah, it's I agree with you guys. What your assessment is, all that we're at council that sat there and seen that this man was found innocent. He was not guilty of, but yet at that moment that he's seen the innocence, the purity, where it says the face, it very well, we see in other examples that face can also mean the presence. So you've been in the presence of a divine being, if you will, that's innocent, and yet you're condemning. And it's an amazing picture of how far men will go to cover their sin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Put to death a pure one, They've been in the presence of Elohim, and they charged him guilty.
Right.
The son of Yahuah, the Word himself. They charged. That's crazy, man.
You're right, Rick. That is crazy. Well, this concludes our men's study, Acts chapter 6. Shalom.